What if you found out that some of the brightest R&B stars were singing through pain you never saw coming? While the world admired their smooth voices, flawless runs, and unforgettable hits, they were quietly fighting illnesses that could have ended everything. Today, you're stepping into the side of R&B nobody ever talks about. You're about to uncover the hidden battles, the close calls, and the shocking truths behind 15 artists who carried heavy burdens while giving you some of the greatest music ever made. 15. Charlie Wilson. Charlie Wilson looked unstoppable on stage, with that smooth voice and big energy that made you feel like he never had a bad day. But behind that confident smile, he was dealing with a serious illness he kept hidden from almost everyone. While fans saw him delivering powerhouse performances, he was quietly fighting prostate cancer, trying to handle the treatments while staying active in the industry. He pushed through pain, exhaustion, and fear, choosing to perform as if nothing was wrong. Charlie did not want pity, and he did not want the world to see him as weak. He wanted the focus to stay on the music. His story shows how strong he really was, carrying a burden that heavy while still shining on stage. 14. Kelly Rowland. Kelly Rowland always looked calm, polished, and in control, especially during the Destiny's Child years when the spotlight followed her everywhere. But even at the height of her success, she was hiding a serious emotional illness that she did not want the world to see. While the group was breaking records and performing in front of huge crowds, she was secretly battling deep depression that made every day feel heavier than the last. Kelly kept smiling on stage, delivering perfect harmonies and confident dance moves, all while quietly struggling inside. She felt pressure to be strong, to keep up the image of a rising superstar, and to never show cracks. Her hidden illness shaped her journey, proving that even the brightest performers can carry pain no one notices. 13. Jennifer Hudson. Jennifer Hudson carried herself with grace, strength, and a powerful voice that could shake a room. But behind that talent was a private illness that weighed heavily on her heart. After experiencing a heartbreaking family tragedy, she slipped into deep emotional trauma that she kept hidden from the world. Fans saw her winning awards, singing on huge stages, and smiling on red carpets. But they never saw the long nights of grief that stayed with her for years. Jennifer pushed herself to keep moving, to keep creating music, and to stay strong for everyone who believed in her. She did not talk openly about how heavy that pain felt, choosing instead to focus on her career. Her hidden struggle shaped her strength and turned her into a survivor in every sense. 12. Tevin Campbell. Tevin Campbell had the kind of voice that made people stop and listen, but behind that smooth sound was a private battle he tried to keep out of public view. When fame came early, the pressure hit him hard. Behind closed doors, he dealt with depression and anxiety that made it difficult to enjoy the success he earned. Fans saw a young star with endless talent, but they did not see the emotional exhaustion, the fear of judgment, and the confusion he carried while growing up in the spotlight. Tevin tried to protect his image by staying quiet about his struggles, choosing to smile for cameras even on days when everything felt heavy. His illness shaped his journey, making every performance a sign of courage rather than simple confidence. 11. Chris Brown. Chris Brown rose fast with dance moves, charm, and a voice that made him one of the biggest R&B artists of his era. But while the world focused on his fame and controversy, he was hiding emotional illnesses that pushed him into darker places. Behind the headlines and high-energy shows, he struggled with inner storms that he rarely spoke about. He carried mood swings, stress, and quiet panic that followed him from studio sessions to world tours. Chris tried to hold everything together by working non-stop, performing as if nothing was wrong. His hidden illness, mixed with the pressures of fame, created a cycle that made his life feel unstable. Underneath the spotlight was a young man battling heavy emotional weight while trying to keep his career alive. 10. Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige became the voice of pain and strength, but her ability to sing so deeply came from real battles she hid for many years. While the world celebrated her bold style and soulful music, she was secretly living with addiction and depression that shaped her life behind the curtains. She smiled on stage, delivered powerful performances, and stood tall in award shows, yet inside, she felt broken. Mary carried childhood trauma, industry pressure, and emotional illness that she kept hidden because she feared being judged or misunderstood. Her voice reached millions, but she herself felt alone while dealing with the hard days. Every song she recorded came from real pain she fought privately, making her story one of courage and survival long before the world realized what she was going through. 9. Usher looked smooth, perfect, and in control, but behind the polished image was a private struggle he kept away from fans. During some of his biggest tours, he was dealing with emotional breakdowns and quiet panic that followed him from city to city. He tried to present confidence on stage, dancing with fire and singing with power, but when the lights went off, he often felt overwhelmed by stress and fear. Usher did not want the world to know he was hurting, so he hid his illness behind smiles, rehearsals, and non-stop work. Fame made it harder for him to slow down, pushing him to act stronger than he felt. His hidden battles shaped the man he became, showing that even the smoothest stars can carry heavy pain in silence. 8. Brandy Norwood grew up in the spotlight with a voice full of emotion and a smile that made people feel connected to her. But behind that bright image, she was privately dealing with an illness that most people never noticed. During her rise, she struggled with depression and an eating disorder that made everyday life feel like a silent battle. While fans saw her performing with confidence, she was often fighting negative thoughts and overwhelming pressure to stay perfect. Brandy wanted to keep her struggles to herself, afraid people might see her differently if they knew. Even while she filmed shows and released music, she carried emotional pain that she rarely shared. Her hidden illness shaped her journey, giving her strength, but also leaving scars that took years to heal. 7. Ginuwine. Ginuwine brought smooth vocals, style, and charisma that made him one of the standout voices in modern R&B. But during his most successful years, he was hiding a serious emotional illness that weighed him down behind the scenes. He dealt with depression and anxiety that made it hard to enjoy the fame he worked so hard to earn. Fans saw a confident performer on stage, but they never saw the quiet moments when he felt overwhelmed or exhausted from holding everything inside. Ginuwine carried personal losses and industry stress that pushed his emotions to dark places. Instead of opening up, he chose to keep everything hidden, hoping he could push through the pain alone. His illness shaped his story, turning every performance into a test of his inner strength. 6. Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys seemed calm, grounded, and full of light, but early in her career, she was hiding emotional illnesses that she felt she could not reveal. Behind the warm smile and powerful songwriting, she carried depression and deep pressure that made her feel trapped between expectation and reality. Alicia tried to protect her image by pretending she was fine, even when the weight of fame made her feel worn out. She worked long hours, toured non-stop, and pushed herself to stay strong while quietly struggling inside. Fans saw confidence and talent, but they did not see the moments when she felt lost or overwhelmed. Her hidden illness shaped her songwriting, giving her music a raw truth that came from real emotional pain she carried in silence. 5. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton carried herself with elegance and power. Even though she was secretly living with a serious physical illness, she tried to manage behind closed doors. She was diagnosed with lupus, a condition that caused fatigue, pain, and heart complications, yet she continued to perform as if nothing was wrong. Toni hid her symptoms because she feared it might slow her career or make people see her differently. On stage, she delivered flawless vocals and graceful movement, but offstage, she fought exhaustion that made simple tasks feel like mountains. Her hidden illness shaped her life, forcing her to balance her passion for music with the quiet suffering that only a few close people knew about. Despite the pain, she kept going, proving her strength again and again. 4. Teddy Pendergrass. Teddy Pendergrass had a voice that carried raw soul and passion, but he was also hiding a long and painful illness that stayed with him for many years. After the accident that left him paralyzed, he dealt with chronic pain, medical complications, and emotional struggles that he kept away from the public eye. Fans saw him returning to music with courage, singing with heart, and refusing to give up, but they did not see the long hours of physical therapy or the silent nights filled with frustration. Teddy pushed himself to keep creating, even when his body felt weak. His hidden illness shaped his music and his spirit, turning him into a symbol of resilience, even though the world never fully understood how hard his journey actually was. 3. Aaliyah. Aaliyah looked gentle, calm, and effortless, but behind her rising success, she was quietly dealing with emotional strain that she never wanted the public to notice. She worked under non-stop pressure, long rehearsals, and heavy expectations that left her exhausted on many days. Even though her career was moving fast, she carried anxiety and stress that made her feel overwhelmed at times. She kept everything hidden because she wanted to appear strong and focused, especially as a young woman in a tough industry. Fans saw the confident dancer, the smooth singer, and the cool star, but they did not see the quiet moments when she felt worn down. Her hidden illness shaped her young journey, showing how much strength she carried behind that soft smile. 2. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross brought warmth, soul, and emotion to every note, yet he lived with a serious illness that he kept private for years. He struggled with diabetes, a condition that caused complications affecting his health more than fans ever realized. While he appeared strong on stage, with that powerful voice filling arenas, he was often dealing with fatigue and medical challenges behind the scenes. Luther wanted people to focus on his music, not his health, so he kept his illness quiet and pushed himself to continue performing. His hidden struggle shaped his later years, making each show a mix of passion and quiet endurance. Even as his condition worsened, he held on to his craft, proving his dedication to music even in the face of a heavy illness. 1. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston had a voice that felt like pure magic, but behind that breathtaking talent was a serious illness she hid for many years. Her struggles with addiction and emotional pain were far deeper than most people understood. Even while she ruled the charts, filmed movies, and performed in front of thousands, she carried a quiet battle that drained her spirit. Whitney tried to keep her illness hidden because she feared judgment and pressure from the industry. She wanted to protect her image and stay strong for her fans, even though the illness followed her everywhere. Her hidden fight shaped her life, affecting her relationships, her confidence, and her health. The world saw a superstar, but only a few knew the weight she carried behind the scenes. So now you've seen the truth they tried so hard to keep tucked away. Voices that healed the world while their own bodies were breaking down behind closed doors. These stories aren't just surprising. They're a reminder of how much pain can hide behind a perfect performance. And it makes you wonder, how many more stars are still suffering in silence right now? If you want more untold stories, more hidden battles, and more deep dives into the artists you grew up listening to, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Don't just watch from the sidelines, join the journey. Your support keeps these stories alive. Their posters were on our walls and their voices filled our radios. And then, in a flash, they were gone. We're uncovering the devastating true stories of rock's biggest tragedies, moments that shocked the world and silenced the music. You won't believe how one icon's tragic end was caused by a fan's twisted obsession. 1. Amy Winehouse. Sometimes a voice comes along that sounds like it's from a different time. Amy Winehouse was one of those voices. She was a young woman from London who sang with the raw, emotional power of a classic jazz or soul singer from the 1960s. With her signature beehive hairdo and her powerful, smoky voice, she was a true original. Her album Back to Black was a global phenomenon. It was full of deeply personal songs about heartbreak and her own struggles. She was a brilliant songwriter who wasn't afraid to show her vulnerability. The world fell in love with her honest and powerful music. She won 5 Grammy Awards in one night and became one of the biggest stars in the world. But behind the incredible talent, Amy was a deeply troubled person. She struggled with her own personal demons and the intense pressure of the media spotlight. The paparazzi followed her everywhere, documenting her every move. Her life became a public spectacle, and it was clear that she was not well. In July 2011, the world received the news that many had feared was coming. Amy was found in her London home. Tragically, she had joined the infamous 27 Club. The world had lost a once-in-a-generation voice. But just a few years before her, a whole generation of rock stars was lost in their prime, starting with a man who didn't just play the guitar, he made it talk. 2. Jimi Hendrix. Imagine a sound you've never heard before. That was Jimi Hendrix. Before him, the electric guitar was just another instrument. In his hands, it was a weapon of mass creativity. He could make it scream, cry, and sing. He was a true revolutionary, a shy kid from Seattle who became a psychedelic rock god. Jimi taught himself to play a right-handed guitar upside down because he was left-handed. He was a true original from the very beginning. After playing in backup bands for years, he was discovered and moved to London, where he exploded onto the scene. With his wild hair, colorful clothes, and mind-bending guitar solos, he was unlike anyone else. His performance at the Monterey Pop Festival, where he famously lit his guitar on fire, made him a legend overnight. His music was a whirlwind of blues, rock, and soul. He was on top of the world, headlining the legendary Woodstock Festival and creating some of the most important rock music ever made. But the rock and roll lifestyle was a fast and dangerous one. In 1970, after a night out in London, Jimi's journey came to a tragic and sudden end. He was just 27 years old. He had only been a star for about 4 years, but in that short time, he had completely rewritten the rules of what a guitar could do. Jimi's unique talent was a force of nature, but he wasn't the only one from that era whose powerful voice was silenced far too early, as our next story shows. 3. Janis Joplin. If Jimi Hendrix made his guitar scream, Janis Joplin did the same with her voice. She was a powerhouse, a woman from a small town in Texas who sang the blues with a raw, emotional honesty that no one had ever heard from a white singer before. She didn't just sing songs, she ripped them open and showed you their heart. Janis was an outsider growing up. She was bullied for being different. But when she discovered the blues, she found her voice. She moved to San Francisco during the Summer of Love and joined a band called Big Brother and the Holding Company. Her performance at the Monterey Pop Festival, the same one that made Jimi Hendrix a star, did the same for her. The world was blown away by this woman who sang with such pain and passion. She was a true rock and roll queen, with her wild hair, colorful clothes, and a bottle of Southern Comfort always in her hand. She was the life of the party, but truth be told, she was also very lonely. She poured all of her pain into her music, and it connected with a generation. She was in the middle of recording her masterpiece album, Pearl, when the party finally caught up with her. Just a few weeks after Jimi Hendrix passed, Janis was found alone in her hotel room. She was also 27 years old. The world had lost another one of its brightest lights. Janis and Jimi were two sides of the same psychedelic coin, but there was one more member of their tragic club, a poet whose dark and mysterious words would make him a legend forever. 4. Jim Morrison. If rock and roll had a dark poet, it was Jim Morrison. As the lead singer of The Doors, he was more than just a frontman. He was a shaman, a performer who seemed to be channeling something from another world. With his leather pants, wild hair, and intense stare, he was the ultimate rock and roll bad boy. Jim was a film student in Los Angeles when he started a band with his friend Ray Manzarek. They wanted to create a new kind of music, something darker and more theatrical than the happy pop on the radio. With songs like Light My Fire and Break On Through, The Doors became one of the biggest bands in the world. Jim's lyrics were like dark poems, and his onstage performances were unpredictable and sometimes even scary. He was a true rebel who lived life on the edge. He challenged authority and pushed every boundary he could find. But that dangerous lifestyle started to take its toll. He became more and more unpredictable. Looking for a change, he moved to Paris with his girlfriend to focus on his poetry. But the darkness followed him. In 1971, he was found in a bathtub in his Paris apartment. He was also, unbelievably, 27 years old. The official cause was heart failure, but the circumstances surrounding his passing remain a mystery to this day, adding to the legend of the Lizard King. Jim Morrison's end was a mystery, but sometimes the tragedy isn't a mystery at all. It's a senseless act of violence that takes a hero away from the world, as our next story proves. 5. John Lennon. Some rock stars are just singers. Others change the world. John Lennon was one of those. As a member of the Beatles, he was part of a musical revolution. He wrote songs that were full of joy, love, and hope. The Beatles were more than a band. They were a phenomenon that changed music, fashion, and culture forever. John was the witty, rebellious one in the band. After the Beatles broke up, he continued to make incredible music on his own. He also became a powerful voice for peace in the world. With his wife, Yoko Ono, he protested against war and asked everyone to give peace a chance. His song, Imagine, became a global anthem for a better world. After a few years away from the spotlight to raise his son, John returned to music in 1980 with a new album. It felt like a new beginning for him. But on a cold December night in New York City, that new beginning came to a horrific end. As he was returning to his apartment building, a man who had earlier asked for his autograph did the unthinkable. The world stood still. John Lennon, the man who had given the world so much hope, was gone. It was a heartbreaking end for a man whose message was all about peace. Lennon's loss was felt by the whole world, but sometimes the tragedy happens within the band itself, a loss that changes their sound forever, as was the case with one of rock's greatest drummers. 6. Keith Moon. Rock and roll drumming is all about keeping the beat. But for Keith Moon, the drummer of The Who, that was boring. He didn't just play the drums, he attacked them. He was a wild man behind the kit, his arms a blur of motion, his drums a symphony of controlled chaos. He was nicknamed Moon the Loon for a reason. The Who was one of the loudest, most exciting bands of the British invasion. And Keith Moon was their explosive engine. His drumming was so unique and so powerful, it was a lead instrument in itself. He was just as famous for his offstage antics. He was a legendary prankster who loved to cause trouble. He was the life of the party, a man who seemed to be living in his own cartoon world. But that wild lifestyle had a dark side. Keith struggled with his own personal demons and an unhealthy reliance on substances to keep the party going. He was a man who couldn't seem to turn off the chaos, even when the show was over. In 1978, at the age of 32, after a night out, the chaos finally caught up with him. The heart of The Who had stopped beating. The band continued, but they were never quite the same without their wild, brilliant, and irreplaceable drummer. Keith Moon was the crazy heartbeat of his band. But just 2 years later, another legendary British rock band would lose its own powerful drummer in a similarly tragic way. 7. John Bonham. If Keith Moon was a wild explosion on the drums, John Bonham was an earthquake. As the drummer for Led Zeppelin, he had a power that was almost inhuman. When he hit his drums, you didn't just hear it, you felt it in your chest. He was the thunder behind one of the biggest and most powerful rock bands of all time. Led Zeppelin was a force of nature in the 1970s. They were the kings of hard rock, selling out stadiums all over the world. And at the center of their massive sound was John Bonzo Bonham. He wasn't just a hard hitter. He had an incredible groove and a feel for the music that was unmatched. He is still considered by many to be the greatest rock drummer who ever lived. The band was famous for its wild, larger-than-life reputation. They were the ultimate rock stars, living a life of excess on the road. But the constant touring and the pressures of being in the biggest band in the world took a heavy toll. In 1980, as the band was preparing for a new tour, the party came to a tragic end for Bonzo. After a day of heavy drinking, he passed away in his sleep. He was just 32 years old. The remaining members of Led Zeppelin were so devastated by the loss of their friend that they knew they couldn't continue without him. The greatest rock band in the world broke up because their thunderous heartbeat was gone forever. Bonham's power was irreplaceable. But our next story is about a singer whose voice was just as unique, a man who was on the verge of superstardom when his journey was cut short. 8. Bon Scott. AC/DC is a band built on raw, powerful, and simple rock and roll. And the original voice of that power was a man named Bon Scott. He wasn't a pretty boy singer. He was a rough-and-tumble guy from Scotland who had lived a hard life, and you could hear it in his voice. He sang with a bluesy, raspy wail that was full of attitude and a mischievous grin. Bon joined AC/DC in the mid-70s and became the perfect frontman for their high-voltage rock. With his tight jeans, his wild hair, and his energetic stage presence, he was the ultimate rock and roll singer. He wrote lyrics that were clever, funny, and a little bit naughty. With Bon at the front, AC/DC was on its way to becoming one of the biggest bands in the world. In 1979, they released the album Highway to Hell, and it was their big breakthrough. They were on the edge of global superstardom. But in February 1980, just as their dream was coming true, tragedy struck. After a night of partying in London, Bon Scott passed away. He was 33 years old. The band was devastated. They thought about quitting, but they knew that Bon would have wanted them to rock on. They found a new singer and released the album Back in Black as a tribute to him. It became one of the best-selling albums of all time. It was a massive success, but for fans who were there from the beginning, there will only ever be one true voice of AC/DC. Bon Scott's voice defined his band's early sound, but for our next artist, it was his guitar that did the talking, a young genius whose life was tragically cut short in a fiery crash. 9. Randy Rhoads. In the world of heavy metal guitar, there are legends. And then there is Randy Rhoads. He was a young guitar prodigy from California who, in just a few short years, completely changed the way heavy metal guitar was played. He mixed classical music with hard rock to create a style that was elegant, powerful, and totally new. Randy first got noticed in a band called Quiet Riot, but his big break came when he was chosen to be the guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne's new solo band. Ozzy had just left Black Sabbath and needed a guitar hero to help him start over. He found one in Randy Rhoads. Together, they created two of the most important heavy metal albums of all time, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. Randy's guitar playing was breathtaking. He was a true virtuoso. He was on tour with Ozzy in 1982, and the band was on its way to becoming huge. Randy was only 25 years old, and he was already being hailed as the future of rock guitar. But his incredible journey came to a shocking and tragic end. During a stop in Florida, the band's bus driver, who had a pilot's license, decided to take a small airplane for a joyride. Randy and the band's makeup artist went with him. The pilot started flying dangerously low, trying to buzz the band's tour bus. On the third pass, the plane's wing clipped the bus, and it crashed into a nearby house, erupting in a ball of fire. The rock world had lost one of its brightest young stars in a senseless accident. Randy's passing was a tragic accident. But for the next band on our list, the tragedy was also a freak accident, one that happened on the road and took away the creative soul of a legendary metal band. 10. Cliff Burton. Metallica. The name itself is a giant in the world of heavy metal, and in their early, hungry days, their secret weapon was a bass player who was more like a lead guitarist. His name was Cliff Burton. He was a true original, a guy in bell-bottoms and a denim jacket who played the bass with a fury and a creativity that no one had ever seen before. Cliff wasn't your typical metalhead. He loved classical music and punk rock. He brought a musical intelligence to Metallica that made them stand out from all the other thrash metal bands. He was the soul of the band, writing some of their most iconic and complex songs. With Cliff on bass, Metallica was becoming the biggest metal band in the world. In 1986, they were on tour in Europe, and their fame was exploding. They were traveling through Sweden on their tour bus overnight. The band members drew cards to decide who would get the best bunk to sleep in. Cliff won. In the early hours of the morning, the bus driver lost control on an icy road. The bus skidded and flipped over. Cliff was tragically lost in the accident. He was just 24 years old. The band was shattered. They had lost not just their bandmate, but their brother and their musical guide. They decided to carry on, but the loss of Cliff Burton left a hole in the heart of Metallica that would never truly be filled. Cliff's loss was a freak accident that no one could have predicted. But for our next artist, the danger wasn't on the road, but in the sky, a heartbreaking end for a rock and roll pioneer. 11. Buddy Holly. Let's go back to the very beginning of rock and roll. In the 1950s, a skinny kid from Texas with thick glasses and a Fender Stratocaster guitar changed the game. His name was Buddy Holly. He was one of rock's first true geniuses, a singer, songwriter, and guitarist who wrote some of the most perfect pop songs ever created. In a time of flashy performers, Buddy Holly was the nerdy guy next door. But his music was revolutionary. He wrote his own songs, which was rare at the time. He experimented with new sounds in the studio. And his band, the Crickets, set the template for the classic two guitars, bass, and drums lineup that the Beatles and countless other bands would follow. Songs like Peggy Sue and That'll Be the Day were huge hits. He was only a star for about a year and a half, but his influence was massive. In the winter of 1959, he was on a grueling bus tour through the freezing Midwest. The bus was so cold and kept breaking down. Buddy decided to charter a small plane to get to the next show. He was joined by two other rising stars, Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. Shortly after takeoff, the plane crashed in a snowy field in Iowa. Buddy Holly was only 22 years old. The day the music passed has become one of the most famous tragedies in music history. A day that stole away one of rock's founding fathers. That plane crash took away three young stars. But our next story is about a singer whose passing was just as sudden and just as heartbreaking, the voice of a generation silenced in a quiet moment at home. 12th Kurt Cobain. In the early 1990s, the rock scene was full of big hair and flashy guitar solos. Then a band from Seattle called Nirvana came along and washed it all away with a wave of raw, emotional, and powerful music. At the center of that storm was Kurt Cobain. With his blonde hair, his sad eyes, and his powerful, pained voice, he became the unwilling spokesman for a generation. Nirvana's album Nevermind was a cultural earthquake. It knocked Michael Jackson off the #1 spot and changed the course of music history. Kurt's songs were full of anger, sadness, and confusion, but they were also incredibly catchy. He was a brilliant songwriter who was uncomfortable with the massive fame that was suddenly thrown upon him. He didn't want to be a rock star. He just wanted to make music. The pressure of being the voice of a generation was too much for him to handle. He struggled with his own inner darkness and the physical pain from a chronic stomach condition. He tried to escape the spotlight, but it followed him everywhere. In April 1994, at the height of his fame, the world was stunned to learn that Kurt had made a heartbreaking final choice in his Seattle home. He was 27 years old. The raw, honest voice that had spoken to so many was gone, leaving behind a legacy that is still felt today. Kurt's passing left a huge hole in the 90s rock scene, but he wasn't the only brilliant singer from that era to lose his battle with his own demons, as our next story shows. 13. Layne Staley. If Nirvana was the punk rock side of the Seattle grunge scene, Alice in Chains was its dark, heavy metal heart. And the haunting, powerful voice of that darkness was Layne Staley. He had a one-of-a-kind voice, a chilling, powerful wail that could express a world of pain in a single note. Alice in Chains was one of the biggest bands of the grunge era. Their music was heavy, sludgy, and full of dark, beautiful harmonies. Layne's lyrics were brutally honest, often dealing with his own personal struggles and the darkness he saw in the world. He was a captivating frontman, but he was also a deeply troubled soul. As the band's fame grew, Layne's personal problems became more severe. He struggled mightily with his inner demons, and it began to affect the band. They stopped touring because he was too unwell to perform. He slowly retreated from the public eye, becoming a recluse in his own home. For years, fans wondered what had happened to him. Then, in 2002, the sad news finally came. Layne was found in his Seattle apartment, having passed away alone. He was 34 years old. It was a tragic and lonely end for a singer whose voice had connected with so many people who felt lost in the dark. Layne's end was a slow and sad retreat. But our next story is about a singer from that same scene who seemed to have conquered his demons, only to have them return in the most heartbreaking way possible. 14. Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell had a voice that could shake mountains. As the frontman for Soundgarden, he was one of the architects of the Seattle grunge sound. His vocal range was incredible. He could go from a soulful whisper to a high-pitched, powerful scream that could give you chills. He was a true rock god. Soundgarden was one of the big four of grunge, along with Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Alice in Chains. After they broke up, Chris went on to have a successful career with the band Audioslave and as a solo artist. He was a survivor of the grunge era, a man who had battled his own demons and had come out the other side. He was a loving father and husband, and he seemed to be in a good place. He was on tour with a reunited Soundgarden in 2017. They played a sold-out show in Detroit. By all accounts, it was a great performance, but just hours later, the world was stunned by the news that Chris was gone. He had lost his long battle with his inner darkness in his hotel room after the show. He was 52 years old. It was a complete shock to his family, his friends, and his fans. It was a devastating reminder that even the strongest-seeming people can be fighting battles that no one else can see. Chris's passing was a shock to everyone, and just a few months later, the music world would be hit with another, almost identical tragedy, involving one of his closest friends. 15. Chester Bennington. For a generation of kids growing up in the 2000s, the voice of their anger and pain was Chester Bennington. As the lead singer of Linkin Park, he created a new sound that blended hard rock, hip-hop, and electronic music. His voice was his superpower. He could sing with a soft, emotional vulnerability one second and then unleash a raw, powerful scream the next. Linkin Park was one of the biggest bands in the world. Their debut album, Hybrid Theory, was a massive success. They spoke to a generation of young people who felt like outsiders. Chester was very open about his own difficult childhood and his struggles with his mental health. That honesty is what made him so relatable to his millions of fans. He made them feel like they weren't alone. He was very close friends with Chris Cornell. Chris's passing hit him incredibly hard. He even sang at his friend's memorial service. But just 2 months later, on what would have been Chris's 53rd birthday, Chester also succumbed to his own long battle with depression. He was 41 years old. It was another devastating blow to the music world and a heartbreaking reminder of the silent struggles that so many people face. The losses of Chris and Chester were a 1-2 punch to the heart of modern rock. But our next story is about a different kind of tragedy, one that took away a glam metal singer who was the ultimate party frontman. 16. Johnny Lane. In the late 80s and early 90s, hair metal was king, and one of the genre's most famous anthems was a fun, silly, and incredibly catchy song called Cherry Pie. The band was Warrant, and their frontman was the handsome, charismatic singer Johnny Lane. Johnny was the total package for a rock star of that era. He had the long blonde hair, the good looks, and a great voice for singing catchy rock songs. Cherry Pie was a monster hit. The music video was played on MTV every 5 minutes. Warrant was suddenly a huge band, and Johnny Lane was a rock and roll star. But he always had a complicated relationship with his biggest hit. Truth be told, he felt like the song was a bit of a joke and that it overshadowed his more serious songwriting. When the music scene changed in the 90s and grunge took over, bands like Warrant were left behind. The fame disappeared as quickly as it came. Johnny struggled for years with the fallout from his time in the spotlight and battled with his own personal issues. In 2011, he was found in a hotel room in Los Angeles. The party was finally over for the Cherry Pie guy. He was 47 years old. Johnny Lane was a star of the hair metal era. But our next artist was from a completely different scene, a punk rock icon whose short, chaotic life became a cautionary tale. 17. Sid Vicious. Punk rock in the 1970s was all about rebellion, anger, and chaos. And no one represented that more than Sid Vicious. As the bass player for the legendary English band the Sex Pistols, he was the poster boy for the punk movement. He couldn't really play his instrument very well, but it didn't matter. He had the look and the attitude. The Sex Pistols were the most dangerous band in the world. Their music was loud, fast, and angry. They were banned from the radio and from playing in many cities. And Sid was their most notorious member. He was a walking train wreck, famous for his wild and destructive behavior. He was the ultimate punk rock rebel. But his story is a truly tragic one. His life was a whirlwind of chaos, and he was in a very volatile relationship with his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen. Their story ended in the worst way imaginable at the Chelsea Hotel in New York. After a series of terrible events, Sid himself would not live much longer. In 1979, at the age of just 21, his short, chaotic life came to an end. He was the ultimate punk rock flame that burned out in a blaze of tragedy. Sid's story is a dark one. But not all rock and roll tragedies happen off stage. For our next artist, his final moments happened in front of a live audience during a performance that became a rock and roll legend. 18. Dimebag Darrell. In the world of heavy metal, some guitarists are great, and some are gods. Dimebag Darrell was a guitar god. As the guitarist for the band Pantera, he created a new sound for metal in the 90s. His guitar riffs were heavy, groovy, and totally unique. He was a true original, a fun-loving guy from Texas who was always smiling and ready to party. Pantera was one of the biggest and most influential metal bands of their generation, and Dimebag was their heart and soul. After Pantera broke up, he started a new band called Damage Plan with his brother, Vinnie Paul, who was the drummer. They were excited to be making music together again. In December 2004, they were playing a show at a small club in Columbus, Ohio. It was just a normal night on tour. But then, the unthinkable happened. A man from the crowd, who had a history of mental health issues, stormed the stage. In a moment of pure horror, he targeted Dimebag. The music world was in shock. One of the most beloved and talented musicians in heavy metal was gone in a senseless act of violence. He was 38 years old. It was a dark day for music, a reminder of the vulnerability of the artists we love. The loss of Dimebag was a shock to the metal community, but our next story is about a different kind of rock star, a woman with a voice from another era, whose story became a heartbreaking echo of the past. These rock and roll artists played loud, lived fast, and died young. Fame gave them lights and crowds, but pills and pain followed them everywhere. 20 rock and roll artists who died from overdoses is not just a list, it's a graveyard of voices that faded too soon. Let us follow the silence that lasted for weeks before anyone even knew they were gone. 1. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix wasn't just a guitarist. He was a revolution dressed in velvet. He made guitars cry, scream, and whisper. He didn't play them. He possessed them. Stages didn't contain him. Studios barely captured him. When he lit his guitar on fire at Monterey, it wasn't a stunt. It was a sacrifice. Every note he played was a detour into another universe. No one came close. No one ever will. But stars that are bright always burn too fast. September 18, 1970. London, just 27, found unresponsive in a rented flat, lying face up in bed. A handful of sleeping pills in his system. Vesperax, heavy stuff. The official report said he choked on his own vomit. Alone, silent, drenched in fame, but isolated in that final hour. He didn't want to die. He was still planning albums, tours, bigger things. But his body was done. Worn down by constant motion, numbed by whatever substances helped him sleep. He wasn't partying, he was trying to rest. The world called it an accident. Others whispered foul play. None of that changed the outcome. The music stopped. The man who flipped rock inside out with Purple Haze and Voodoo Child vanished in silence. There was no final solo, no farewell, just a still room, a broken chord. Hendrix didn't just change music. He rewrote what it could be. He didn't live long, but he lived loud. And when he left, the silence that followed felt permanent. 2. Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin didn't just sing. She screamed her soul out. Her voice wasn't smooth. It was wild, scarred, full of ache. She didn't polish her edges. She sharpened them. Every word she belted out felt like it was ripped from a wound that never closed. People didn't watch her perform. They watched her bleed. But even fire runs out of oxygen. October 4th, 1970, Los Angeles, the Landmark Motor Hotel. She was 27 years old, just days after Hendrix. She was found on the floor of her room, alone. Opioids overdose. The dose was too pure, too powerful. One shot, and she was gone. They say her hand was still reaching for the cigarettes she never got to light. She had just finished recording her best work, Pearl. Her band was waiting for her in the studio the next day. She never showed up. And when the phone finally rang, it wasn't her voice. It was the end. Janis wasn't some fragile flower. She was raw steel. But she was tired. The loneliness followed her like a shadow. The crowds cheered, but she still walked back to empty hotel rooms. Her voice shook buildings. Her pain never shook free. Everyone knew she was using it. Everyone saw her spiraling. But in the music world, pain is just part of the costume, until the body gives out. 3. Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse sounded like she was born in a different century. Her voice was smoke, sorrow, and soul packed into a body too small for the weight she carried. She didn't try to sound old school. She just was Billie Holiday with a bruised heart. Her songs weren't just about pain. They were confessions set to jazz, R&B, and heartbreak. But the world wanted the pain more than the person. July 23, 2011. London. She was 27 years old, found alone in her Camden flat. Blood alcohol 5 times the legal limit. That wasn't a party. That was a cry swallowed in vodka. A final relapse after weeks of trying to stay sober. Her body couldn't take it. Everyone watched her unravel. Paparazzi stalked her rehab stints like episodes of reality TV. Crowds laughed when she slurred through concerts. The media devoured every breakdown. But few ever asked if she was okay. She had tried, pulled out of tours, canceled shows, tried to clean up. But addiction doesn't care about platinum records or Grammys. It waits. And when you're weak, it wins. She didn't overdose on stage. She died in silence, in the shadows. Not from opioids, not from crack, just from despair drowned in alcohol. Amy sang like her life depended on it, because it did. But she ran out of second chances. 4. Tom Petty. Tom Petty didn't scream to be heard. He didn't need to. His songs spoke like letters you forgot you wrote. Simple, honest, timeless. Free Fallin' American Girl, I Won't Back Down. They weren't just hits. They were blueprints for staying sane in a world that constantly tilts sideways. He looked like the guy next door, but he carried entire generations in his voice, and he never stopped, not even when his body begged him to. October 2nd, 2017. Malibu, found unconscious at home, dead hours later. Cause of death? A toxic mix. Fentanyl, oxycodone, temazepam, alprazolam. Pills prescribed for pain, anxiety, insomnia. His body, worn down from decades of touring, finally gave out. He had a fractured hip, still hit the road, still played 53 shows in just a few months. Gritting through the pain, smiling through the haze, playing as if everything was fine. He gave the crowd magic, even while quietly breaking apart. Tom wasn't trying to get high. He was trying to survive. The medicine cabinet became his crutch, his armor, his only way to keep going. But pills don't warn you. They don't care about intention. They just build up until something snaps. There was no overdose in a seedy hotel. No scandal, no outburst. Just a man trying to manage the pain and losing. His voice always sounded like someone holding on through the storm. 5. Prince. Prince didn't follow rules. He broke them, melted them down, and wore them as high heels and eyeliner. He wasn't just an artist. He was a universe. A one-man orchestra. Purple Rain, When Doves Cry, Kiss. He made music that dripped with desire, sorrow, and genius. He played 27 instruments, owned every stage he stepped on. But behind the velvet and sparkle was a man in pain. April 21st, 2016, Paisley Park. Found unresponsive in an elevator. Gone at 57. Cause of death? Fentanyl, the fake kind, laced into counterfeit Vicodin. He thought he was easing pain. He was walking into a trap. Prince had been dealing with intense hip pain for years. Decades of dancing, jumping, performing like his life depended on it. Finally caught up to him. He didn't complain, didn't cancel. He just took what was given and kept moving. The pills weren't to get high. They were to keep the show alive. But fentanyl doesn't care about legacies. It strikes quietly, suddenly. Even kings. He had just performed days before, still dazzling, still flawless. No one saw the end coming, not even him. He'd flown home after an emergency landing days earlier. People were worried, but not worried enough. When Prince died, it didn't feel real. The sky didn't feel purple anymore. The music industry stopped cold. One of the last true gods had fallen, not in scandal, not in flames, but in silence. He lit up stages around the world. Lane Staley. Lane Staley didn't sing, he confessed. His voice sounded like a haunted house, beautiful, broken, and echoing with pain. Alice in Chains wasn't grunge's party, it was its funeral. And Lane was the preacher. Every song felt like a warning. Every lyric was a goodbye in disguise. People loved the darkness in his music. They just didn't realize how real it was. April 19, 2002. Seattle. Lane's body was found in his apartment, or what was left of it. 2 weeks dead. Skin sunken. Needle still nearby. Opioids and stimulants. A speedball. The same mix that took Belushi, but this wasn't a wild binge. It was a routine. A slow-motion death. The blinds were closed. The TV was still on. There were piles of unread mail by the door. No one had called. No one had knocked. Lane faded out and the world didn't notice. Not for days. He'd been missing from the spotlight for years. No tours, no interviews. Just rumors and silence. Fans waited. Friends are worried. But Lane had already disappeared before his heart stopped beating. He used to fill stadiums with that voice. Now, he couldn't fill a room. Addiction didn't just destroy him, it erased him. Slowly, quietly. The guy who wrote Down in a Hole lived there until it swallowed him. No final words, no last album. Just a body discovered too late, and a voice that still echoes, like a ghost. He didn't go out with a bang. He crumbled, and no one was watching when it happened. 7. Scott Weiland. Scott Weiland looked like he belonged on a poster. Sharp cheekbones, snake hip swagger, velvet voice. But beneath the sunglasses and stage moves was a man always walking a tightrope. He fronted Stone Temple Pilots, then Velvet Revolver. His voice could growl like a beast or soar like a prayer. He was grunge's wild card, a frontman you couldn't predict, and neither could he. December 3, 2015, Minnesota, tour bus. He was 48 years old, found dead in the back lounge, cold, alone. The toxicology report listed stimulants, alcohol, methylene dioxyamphetamine, heart disease, asthma, a mess of pills and time bomb symptoms. Another slow death that everyone saw coming, and no one stopped. He'd been fighting addiction for decades. Rehab after rehab, arrests, relapses, comebacks, headlines. So he kept showing up. On stage, he was magnetic. Off stage, he was unraveling. Slurred interviews, missed cues, blank stares. People wrote him off as a burnout, but inside, he was just exhausted. Tired of trying to stay clean. Tired of pretending to be okay. His wife said he was using it again. His bandmates said he was slipping. But no one knew how bad it really was until he stopped breathing. He didn't die with a guitar in his hands. He died curled up in the back of a bus no one was checking. Scott wasn't reckless. He was running from something that never stopped chasing him. 8. D. Ramone. D. Ramone didn't act punk. He was a punk. Raw, loud, dangerous. His bass lines weren't just rhythm, they were heartbeat. He helped invent a sound that would outlive them all. The Ramones were chaos wrapped in leather, and D was the gas can behind the fire. But even legends get tired. and Dee Dee got tired early. June 5, 2002. Los Angeles. Found dead in his apartment. He was 50 years old. Opioids overdose. The needle was nearby. A relapse. One more hit after years of trying to stay clean. One hit too many. He'd been off the stuff, tried painting, tried poetry, tried surviving. But opioids don't let go easily, and the world outside the Ramones was quieter, colder, harder to navigate. He was the soul of the band, but the first to fall. He wrote 53rd and 3rd, Rockaway Beach, Chinese Rock, songs that sounded fun but were soaked in desperation. Everyone sang along. No one stopped to hear the warning. He wasn't glamorous, he was broken. He made punk look fun, but it never was. It was a fight to stay standing. And Dee Dee lost that fight alone in a small room. No crowd, no curtain call, just another headline about another overdose. His bass still rattles in speakers, but the man behind it disappeared long before the music stopped. Dee Dee gave punk its voice and died the way punk always warned us, loud on the inside, silent on the way out. 9. Bradley Nowell. Bradley Nowell sang about addiction like someone who had already lived through the end. Sublime made music for beaches and bar fights, love and withdrawal. His voice had a laid-back charm, but underneath there was always this heaviness. Ska, punk, reggae, hip-hop. It didn't matter the genre. If Brad sang it, you could feel the struggle between light and dark. He joked. He smiled. But he was sinking. May 25, 1996. San Francisco, a Travelodge motel. Just 28. Sublime was finally on the verge. Their self-titled major label debut was done. They were about to blow up. But that morning, their manager opened the door and found Brad dead on the floor. Opioids, too much, too fast. Just hours after his wife and baby flew home. Just days before his face was on MTV. He'd tried to quit, again and again, for his band, for his family, for his son, Jacob. But opioids don't care about fathers or contracts or love. It whispers when the world is quiet. And Brad listens one more time. He didn't overdose at a party. It wasn't a wild night. No screaming crowd, just a silent room and a man who couldn't outrun the monster he'd sung about. After his death, Sublime exploded. Radio hits, MTV rotation, sold-out tours without him. Brad didn't get to enjoy the spotlight. He got a headline and a legacy cut short. He gave us songs full of sunshine, but he died in the shadows. 11. Hillel Slovak. Hillel Slovak didn't just play guitar. He infected it with funk, punk, and fire. He was the original spark behind the Red Hot Chili Peppers, before stadiums, before hits, before MTV. There was Hillel, barefoot, sweaty, shredding through chaos. His riffs weren't polished. They were wild, messy, alive. The kind of sound that made you want to jump off a roof and dance. But Hillel was always falling, even when the band was rising. June 25, 1988, Los Angeles. He was 26 years old, found dead in his apartment, opioids overdose, no dramatic scenes, just silence and a syringe. He'd been trying to quit, again, wrote about it in his journals, drew sketches of pain and hope, but the addiction didn't care. It waited. It knew he'd come back. The Chili Peppers were on the verge. Their third album had dropped. Things were moving, but Hillel was slipping. Shows were canceled, rehearsals missed. His bandmates saw it, felt it, but didn't know how to stop it. After he died, everything cracked. Jack Irons left the band. Anthony Kiedis disappeared. Flea spiraled. The grief didn't just hit, it burned through everything. Hillel wasn't famous when he died. He became a legend afterward. The foundation, the soul they lost before the world even knew his name. He didn't get a tribute tour or a documentary, just a paragraph in the liner notes and a permanent hole in the band. He made the guitar sound like joy during a panic attack. And then the silence took him. 12. Gram Parsons. Gram Parsons didn't look like a rock star. He looked like someone lost in the wrong decade. Cowboy boots, rhinestones, heartbreak in his eyes. But when he sang, the world stopped pretending country and rock didn't belong together. He made music that felt like dirt roads and last chances. He called it cosmic American music. It was stardust and sorrow. It was him. September 19, 1973. Joshua Tree, 26 years old, dead in a cheap motel room. Morphine and alcohol. Too much. Too fast. He'd flown out to the desert to escape, to chase stars, maybe to find God. But the substances found him first. The quiet kind of overdose. No ambulance. Just stillness and a man who never learned how to say no. He'd been using it for years. Pills, opioids, booze, always trying to fill some hole he couldn't name. He left the Byrds, formed the Flying Burrito Brothers, went solo, but the ghosts followed. And in that motel, they caught up. What happened next was surreal. A friend stole his body from LAX in a hearse, drove it into the desert, lit it on fire beneath the stars. Just like Gram always said he wanted, his ashes scattered across sand and myth. He never became a household name, not while he lived. But everyone you love who sings with twang and sadness, they're standing on his shoulders. Gram didn't die on stage. He died in limbo, between fame and obscurity, between peace and poison. And the saddest part? He was finally making the music he was born for, right before the silence took him. 13. Shannon Hoon. Shannon Hoon had the kind of voice that made you stop what you were doing and listen. High, sharp, broken. He wasn't trying to sound perfect. He sounded real. Blind Melon wasn't just another 90s band. They were weird, warm, psychedelic, and sad. And Shannon was their soul. Wild-eyed, shirtless, smiling like someone who had no idea how much pain he was carrying. October 21st, 1995. New Orleans, just 28. Found dead in the band's tour bus. Stimulant overdose. The bus had been parked outside the hotel. The band was on the road. New album out. Things were happening, but Shannon was already fading. He died in his sleep, alone in a place meant to carry him forward. He had a newborn daughter. He'd gone to rehab. He promised to change. But rehab can't reach the parts of you that stay hidden. And stimulants don't care if you're trying. He'd been clean until he wasn't. The relapse came quietly without a scene. Just one line, then nothing. His body couldn't take it. His heart gave out while the rest of the world kept spinning. Blind Melon tried to go on, but it wasn't the same. The band lost more than a voice. They lost their heart. There were no headlines screaming in shock, just a sad confirmation. Another gifted soul silenced before he ever got the chance to grow old. Shannon didn't want to be a legend. He just wanted to breathe. But the weight of everything crushed him first. 15. Pete Farndon. Pete Farndon gave the Pretenders their backbone. His bass didn't just hold the songs together, it pushed them forward. He played with elegance and attitude. On stage, he looked cool, locked in, untouchable. But under the surface, Pete was spiraling. Fame gave him a spotlight. Addiction gave him a shadow. April 14th, 1983. He was 30 years old, found in the bathtub of his London home. He had passed out after taking opioids. He drowned, quiet, alone. The band had already let him go months earlier. Too many missed rehearsals. Too many nights where he didn't show up at all. They loved him, but they couldn't save him. By the time he died, the industry had already moved on. No major headlines, no tributes on TV. just a small article in the music press. Another name in a growing list of could have been and should have been. What made it worse? He wasn't just talented, he was kind. His bandmates said he had a gentle soul, but opioids don't care how good your heart is. It only cares how deep it can pull you under. He had seen success, tasted the big stages, played on hit records. But in the end, none of that mattered. When he needed help most, he was already out of the picture. Pete wasn't a rock star cliché. He was a real person with a real problem. And when the substances finally won, the world barely noticed. He gave the pretenders their rhythm and died in silence long before his story should have ended. 16. Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was bigger than music. He didn't just sing. He shook the world. The hips, the sneer, the voice that slipped between gospel and sin. He invented cool before anyone knew what it was. Crowds screamed. TV stations panicked. The king had arrived, and by the time they crowned him, he was already too famous to be saved. August 16, 1977. Graceland, 42 years old, found face down on the bathroom floor. The official report said cardiac arrhythmia, but that wasn't the full truth. There were 14 different substances in his system: opioids, sedatives, amphetamines, barbiturates. A pharmacy's worth of chemicals pumped into one man for years. Elvis wasn't partying. He was surviving. Barely. His body was falling apart. He was bloated, sick, and exhausted. But the tours kept coming. The cameras kept flashing. No one told him to stop. They just gave him more pills. He'd gone from revolutionary to prisoner, trapped in Graceland, trapped in his own body. He was the most famous man on earth, and he was completely alone. He died not on stage, not in a blaze of glory, but on the cold tile of a private bathroom. His heart gave out. But it was the system around him that destroyed him. They built a myth around him, a legend, but they ignored the man, the pain, the addiction. Elvis gave the world everything. And when he collapsed, it gave him nothing in return but silence. The king didn't lose his crown. He drowned in it. 17. Michael Hutchence. Michael Hutchence was everything a frontman should be. Magnetic, dangerous, impossible to ignore. INXS wasn't just a band, it was a pulse, and Michael was the heart. His voice was smooth and seductive, and his stage presence made stadiums feel like bedrooms. He sang like he had secrets. And he did. A lot of them. November 22, 1997. Sydney, Ritz-Carlton Hotel. He was 37 years old, found hanging by his belt behind the hotel room door. Alone. They called it self-inflicted death. But his system told a longer story. Alcohol, stimulant, Prozac. A fog of substances that blurred the line between escape and self-destruction. Michael had been unraveling. Custody battles, fame fatigue, depression that kept growing heavier. He wasn't hiding it, but no one was really listening either. He joked about not making it to 40. People laughed. Then he didn't. He was supposed to start a tour. Instead, they found his body. The man who once strutted across stages like a god died on a dirty floor, surrounded by silence. There were rumors. Was it an accident? Was it intentional? Does it matter? The man who gave the world "Never Tear Us Apart" was torn apart long before the rope finished the job. Michael didn't go out in glory. He slipped into the dark, covered in chemicals and regret. And the world only really listened to what he was saying once he stopped singing. 18. Tommy Bolin. Tommy Bolin played guitar like he was born with strings in his veins. Blues, rock, funk, he didn't follow rules. He bent them until they screamed. He played with James Gang, with Deep Purple. As a solo artist, he was just starting to show the world what he could really do. His fingers were fast, his soul restless, and it didn't last. December 4th, 1976, Miami, just 25 years old, found dead in a hotel room after a show. Opioids and stimulants, same toxic cocktail that's taken too many. His final concert was hours earlier. He'd played through pain, barely able to move his arm, but he didn't cancel, didn't complain. He smiled. He gave the crowd fire, even as he was fading. He'd struggled with substances for years. Everyone knew, everyone saw it. But talent excuses a lot, until it doesn't. They said he looked tired, pale, off. But when the show ends, no one's backstage checking your pulse. His solo record, Private Eyes, had just dropped. The critics were calling it genius, a new phase, a comeback. But there was no phase two, just silence, just another young talent whose body couldn't keep up with the weight of his escape. There was no blaze of glory, just a hotel room, a needle, and another thing that could have been carved into rock history. And in doing so, he silenced something the world never got enough of. 19. John Entwistle. John Entwistle wasn't flashy. He didn't leap across stages or throw guitars. He just stood there, stone-faced, calm, and made the ground shake. The ox, the thunder inside the Who. While the rest of the band exploded, he anchored them with fingers that moved like machines. He didn't talk much. He didn't need to. His bass did the screaming. June 27, 2002, Las Vegas. Hard Rock Hotel. He was 57 years old. Dead just hours before the Who's reunion tour was set to begin. Cause of death, heart attack brought on by a stimulant overdose. A strip club dancer was in the room. He'd been partying. But this wasn't some wild rock star moment. It was a man chasing a feeling he'd been missing for years. He had heart problems. He knew it. His doctors warned him. But the lifestyle never left. Not fully. The shows kept coming. The pressure never stopped. So he reached for the rush. Just one more night, like the old days. But the body doesn't forget. And that one night was all it took. The tour went on. The band grieved in motion. Fans filled arenas, but the sound had changed. You could feel the missing heartbeat, the silence behind the noise. John wasn't supposed to go out like that. Not him, not the steady one, but even the strong fall. He didn't die on stage. He died in a hotel bed, surrounded by ghosts. And when the bass went quiet, the rest of the band sounded just a little less alive. 20. Keith Moon. Keith Moon didn't play drums, he attacked them. Every fill was chaos. Every beat was war. He didn't keep time. He shattered it. The Who called him Moon the Loon, and he lived up to it. He blew up toilets, drove cars into pools, passed out on stage, then got back up and played like a hurricane. But the same madness that made him a legend was eating him alive. September 7th, 1978. London. He was 32 years old, died in his sleep after taking clomethiazole, a substance prescribed to curb alcohol cravings. He took 32 pills, way more than he was supposed to. He didn't do it to party. He did it to stop drinking, to get clean, and it ended him. He'd tried, really tried, but the damage was done. His body was already fragile. The booze, the substances, the chaos, they had been stacking up for years. He wasn't Keith anymore, just the shadow of the storm. He died alone, in bed, after a quiet dinner with his girlfriend. No fans, no stage, just sleep turned into silence. The man who made the drums roar went out without a sound. When the news hit, people didn't believe it. Not Keith, not the one who always bounced back. But even legends run out of chances. Keith Moon was a walking explosion. And when he finally went still, it was more shocking than any crash he ever caused.